Ring, 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 ring. Hello, is this Noah the Wolf from London? I need your advice. This is Iron Musk speaking from the Twitter HQ. I have a question about whether or not I can fire the Twitter execs. I don't think they're doing a good job. This company should be worth way more money. What are your thoughts?
I'm not your lawyer, so this is not like real legal advice. But that being said, it's Halloween, and I will try my very best to give you some advice. In honor of you calling me, I am doing this call from my Tesla. Despite the advice I'm going to give, Elon's done some pretty amazing things. However, in this particular case, you can do anything you feel like. It's possible to fire people and say it's for cause. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to work and hold up. Specifically, the reason you're asking about this is that on Thursday, one of Elon Musk's first tasks running Twitter was fire Parag Agrawal, chief executive of Twitter, Ned Siegel, CFO of Twitter, Vijaya Gadde, who was the top legal and policy executive, as well as Sean Edgett, who was the general counsel of Twitter. So they all got fired, and the surprise was that Elon Musk did this for cause. And I think a lot of people kind of reported on that and looked at that. Sorry, I got some werewolf hands here, and they make it a little cumbersome to hold my phone. But I think a lot of people were surprised about that. And so what some of us did is kind of actually went to the underlying company filings where you can find the definition of cause. And so what you got to do to figure this puzzle out, there's sort of two ways to do it. One is to go to the company's proxy statement listing things about executive comp, or number two, you could find these executives' employment contracts. So I found on Edgar, and we'll post a link to this in the notes, Parag Agrawal's employment contract. So November 29th, 2021, there he's got a letter agreement detailing the terms of his employment. And basically what it says about termination is he signs on to something called the Amended and Restated Change of Control and Involuntary Termination Protection Policy. And so if you pull up the Change of Control and Involuntary Termination Protection Policy, as restated or amended and restated, effective August 8th, 2014 for Twitter, what you get is a section that details what happens if these executives are terminated following a change of control. And so it's pretty normal in executive employment agreements that an executive would be protected in case of a change of control. And so what is very typical is for there to be what's called a double trigger termination payment that gets paid. So normally if you're an executive and you get terminated, you have like a set of things that happen under your employment contract, right? Like you get a termination payment and there's an acceleration of options vesting, and like your COBRA or health insurance payments are covered for like a period of time, like 6 months or a year. And that exists just in recognition of the fact that it can be really hard to find another executive role. Like there aren't that many of these jobs, they're very non-interchangeable. And so finding a new one can be really hard and take a while. So executive employment contracts have like pretty generous termination provisions in them. And what's pretty common is that those things like get even more generous in case of a change of control. And like the typical thing is that they sort of double. So if you would have gotten like 1 year's salary on termination or 6 months salary on termination, it'll be like 2x that on change of control. And that's what happens under this Twitter change of control and involuntary termination policy, that basically things do double if you get terminated in the sort of period just before a change of control happens. So in this case, it's like 3 months before, or in the period somewhere afterwards, like 6 months afterwards, a year afterwards. If you're involuntarily terminated, you get this sort of double payment. So it's a double trigger. You get terminated, a change of control happens, and you get terminated, then you get double what you would have otherwise got. In the case of Twitter, like these execs would have been subject to that policy as far as I can tell. Not positive with Edrit, the general counsel, but the other three are all in there. Looks like they're covered. And Edrit probably was too with that senior of a role. And so then Elon's trying to get out of that, like he knows this policy exists, and is trying to get out of it by saying, well, you know, it's all good that there's this policy, but these people were terminated for cause. They were incompetent leadership, and if they were competent leadership, you know, this company would be worth a whole lot more. And that's kind of his reason for buying it. He feels that if he's running the company, he can make it worth a whole lot more. Unfortunately, like, cause doesn't necessarily work that way. And so, like, the cause under here says specifically that there's, like, really limited conditions under which you can call something can be cause. And that's like unauthorized disclosure of confidential information, where the disclosure causes harm to the company, breach of an agreement between the employee and Twitter, but it's probably got to be like, it just says breach of any agreement, but like probably it's going to be a pretty material one just based on employment law, failure to comply with the company's written policies or rules, including its code of conduct, conviction of a felony in the U.S., gross negligence or willful misconduct, failure to perform assigned duties after receiving written notification, or cooperating in good faith with the government or internal investigation of Twitter. So those are like all the things, and I think what Elon would say is that, you know, they maybe, like, you could find some kind of technical breach of some agreement, but there's one other catch, and that is that the employee needs to have 30 days notice of their breach, and then so under like breach of an agreement, failure to comply with written policies, or under performing duties, the employee is supposed to get 30 days of written notice, and then they have 30 days to cure their breach. So like that obviously did not happen here. I think Elon would be trying to terminate under one of those things, like saying it's a breach of duties or something like that, which is probably unlikely to hold up as employment law anyways, but maybe you could pull it off. But even if that did happen, he would have had to have gotten 30 days, like Parag would have had to have gotten 30 days written notice by the board, and he would have gotten a further 30 days to try to cure it. So like there's zero chance that that happened because this all happened on Thursday. And so like the first day that notice could have happened was Thursday. And if he'd really felt like doing this, he should have given a notice that Parag wasn't complying with his duties on day one. And then 60 days later, he could have terminated him. But he didn't do that. And I think this one's going to be pretty hard to pull off. I am joined by a teammate on here, Buddy the Elf, also known as Maya Lash. Maya, do you have anything to add to what I've said?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you, Werewolf of London. I thought that that was a really helpful explanation of what's been going on. I think it's really interesting for people to read the policies and the employment agreements and can get a better understanding of sort of the situation and what happened. So like you mentioned, we will share the links, and anyone who's interested should definitely have a look.
This is a super interesting case. Basic thing is it's really hard to terminate employees for cause, period, or so is the legend I've always heard. But, you know, maybe it is untrue, just like perhaps werewolves are untrue too. But I don't know that this one is even going to get to whether or not it's possible to terminate people for cause more easily than employment lawyers say, because here the notice period just hasn't been given. And basically, like, the details of contracts really matter when you go to do things with them. So you really need to look at the details of the contracts. It's really easy to miss the details of the contracts, by the way, when you're in a rush, when you got a huge volume, and when you get a lot of stuff going on. And I think that's probably what happened here. Like, I think if Elon had actually read the sort of details of these contracts, I doubt he would have tried it. That said, Elon is Elon, and he's made it to where he is because he has sort of seen things that other people thought were kind of crazy and wouldn't work, and he made them work. I'm sitting in an example of that right now. It's pretty awesome. Hiring people whose company you've just bought when they did everything they could to get the deal done, maybe less awesome, but nonetheless, he is someone who does continue to pull off things that we think are impossible, and maybe there's something here we haven't seen, but I would be pretty surprised since the terms of his employment agreement seem quite clear.
Thank you very much. It was a really good breakdown.
Awesome. Happy Halloween all.